Hello, everybody. My name is Biggest AG Fan Ever, and welcome back to AGTube Central's podcast. And today I am joined with...
I'm Sydney, 5hensandacockatiel.
And today we're going to be talking about your incredible photography and just your entire process of photography.
Sounds fantastic. I'm very excited to get started.
So starting off, what or who inspired you to start taking photos, and when did you first get into it?
Yeah, so I think I was around 12 years old, and I had kind of grown out of playing with my dolls, like playing school, playing house, that kind of a thing. And I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do with them. And I started seeing like people on AGTube making stop motions, and I thought that they looked amazing. And then I discovered a blog called Pleasant Piper, and it was a blog written and photographed by this professional photographer about her doll Piper, and the pictures were just so engaging and beautiful and wonderful. And me in my 12-year-old head was just going, I can do this, I gotta do this. And so I was very excited. I took my doll out. Like, I remember my very first photo shoot was on a bike ride with my family, and I took my mom's point and shoot camera, and I took photos of this doll like along the river, and they looked terrible, and I was kind of disappointed, but it was my first thing, and that's kind of where it all started.
So were you taking pictures before you started your Instagram, or was it like at the same time?
Yeah, so I started my Instagram when I was 15. So like there was, about 3 years between starting taking pictures when I was around 12 and then starting at my Instagram. I actually posted videos of my photo shoots on my YouTube channel, 5hensandacockatiel. So there are like old videos, slideshows of my terrible first photos that are pretty amusing. I don't watch them very often, but there were a few years between starting photography and starting 5hens.
Speaking of your Instagram, then how did you come up with a name for your Instagram? Because it's really unique.
So I don't think I've actually ever said this. My brother came up with the name
Oh,
when
really?
yeah. So I think I was, once again, I think I was 12, and I was wanting to like get a YouTube channel and all of these things. I knew on my 13th birthday I was going to have to register and do all of these things. So I wanted to get a Facebook, a YouTube, like all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I was talking to my brother, and I think we were like, going back and forth between ideas, but he was the one who came up with 5hens and a cockatiel, because at the time, of course, I had 5hens and a cockatiel. It's funny because it never crossed my mind that at some point that username would become outdated once my chickens passed along. So now I have 4 hens and a rooster actually at home. But yeah, it was just a fun thing. I thought it was so me. I loved the name so much, and now it's just a funny thing to explain to people. But yeah, my chickens are very much a part of my life. So it works.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely really cute.
Oh, well, thank you. It's memorable, though a lot of people in the past have read it as 5hens and a cocktail, which always makes me laugh a lot.
I remember the first time I heard it, I was like, that's an interesting name, especially for someone on like AGIG or AGTube. Usually people put like AG in their name, so.
It's entirely void of AG. It is purely unique pets.
I like it though.
Well, thank you. It's become something that I really love, but it took a while for me. I don't know, after having had it, I think between the ages of like 16 to about 18, I was kind of sheepish about it, but whatever.
Yeah. So right now on your Instagram, you have 2,086 photos. That's insane. Like, that's more photos than I can even imagine, especially how incredible your photography skills are. It's impressive that you've taken that many photos. So do you have do you have a favorite photo, and why is it your favorite?
Oh man, it's really hard to, you know, I love so many of the recreations that I've done in the past. So like there are some, I always kind of go back to Stand By Me, the pictures I took when I was 17 to 18, and we went down to like the filming location of the movie in Brownsville, Oregon. And there's like this one shot of the four boys walking back into town after like the whole movie is over. And I tried to recreate that. And it's just such a fun memory for me because my brother and my mom were holding two boys apiece in their hands, and they were like holding them way above their heads so that they wouldn't be in the shot. And we were running out into the street. I was quickly taking a couple pictures, not knowing what I was doing. I was very like, I'd never done a recreation before really. And so we were just trying to get it as close as possible. We would run back out onto the sidewalk and let cars go by, run back in, run back out. And the way it came out afterwards, just, oh, I love that picture so much. But I don't know. I also love some of the more recent ones that I've done, like from recreating films from like Little Women. There's a couple photos that I adore. Pretty much the pictures that just resonate a lot with me are ones that I've recreated just because they make me so excited. Like I love doing those.
I really loved your Matilda ones.
Oh, thank you.
And your Matilda doll is
I know.
spot on.
I was so surprised by her. You know, sometimes when you like have an idea for a recreation and you make the doll and the outfit and you're just like, this is just not what I had in mind. But she, like, I sometimes just hug her because her outfit is just so 90s and slouchy and adorable. And I love it so much.
Speaking of your favorites, what are your favorite and your least favorite parts of taking photos?
That's a very good question. I'd say my favorite part is playing with lighting and trying to recreate, or not recreate, but like trying to emulate certain moods that, I want the scene to have. And so like definitely working in like darker moods and lighting, and then just having a couple different light sources to make something a little more deep is really, really fun for me. I'd say playing with lighting is my favorite part. My least favorite part is when I have an idea in my head and I just can't translate it. It's happens periodically, and it's like I know what I want to do and I have no idea how to achieve this. And I've set up, I've spent hours setting this thing up, and it just looks terrible in camera. And at that point, I usually just try my best and then try to edit it as closely as possible. But that's always disappointing because, you start feeling like, well, I'm kind of a failure in this, and I'm no good. And so that happens periodically, but most of the time it's okay. I can work around things. I used to be a very like negative self-talk kid, and so it's gotten a lot better over the years.
Yeah, I totally get the feeling of like, I have this huge idea in my head and I just can't get it to come across.
Exactly. I mean, especially when you're working with dolls and,
Definitely.
they don't like, it's very hard to capture certain emotions with dolls. And so when you're trying to get something across, it's like sometimes it's too difficult. It's just so hard.
Yeah, I get that because I film stop motions, and
Oh my gosh.
I'll sometimes have these super elaborate ideas in my head, and I'll be like, realistically, how am I going to do this?
Right? I know. And I am so in awe of people who do stop motions. Like, you are amazing. I tried to do one when I was like 13 years old, and it was one scene that I attempted to do, and it took me about an hour, and I just wanted to die because it was like 10 seconds of footage that was like terrible. I'm like, I'm never doing this again. Oh, yeah.
Obviously, though, you've taken a lot of photos for your Instagram. We've already talked about that.
But there's a lot.
Were your photography and like photo editing skills all self-taught, or have you ever taken any courses?
Yeah, so they were primarily, so I mean, there's YouTube, so it's like, yes, you're taking courses all the time. My brother is a really good photographer and videographer, and so he's a few years older than I am. My first camera was one that he had, so I always like reached out to him. I was just like, hey, how do I do this? And he taught me a lot of the basics of Photoshop. So he did that, and then when it came to Lightroom, I got that when I was like, I think 18 years old, and that was a lot of just playing around with it, but mostly YouTube videos. Like I think I've taken one online course for some kind of photography, but it wasn't really for editing. So just lots and lots and lots of YouTube videos constantly, and then figuring out what styles I like. And it generally comes down to like, I have an idea in my head. I don't know how to achieve this in Photoshop. So then I go on to like YouTube and look up how do I, levitate something in Photoshop and, do something. So I'm very specific. And then once I have that skill, I can just apply it to future photos.
For the most part, you are self-taught. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, yes and no. I mean, like I said, there's so much information out there. So, but yes, it's been mostly me just kind of figuring it out as I go along.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, you didn't go to college and take like photography classes.
No, you're right.
So
that's true.
when you think about that, that just shows how dedicated and hardworking you are to have the drive to be like, learn on your own and be like, I need to know this skill, so I'm going to teach it myself through YouTube or through trial and error.
Yeah, there's lots of trial and error, but thank you. That means a lot to me. I definitely put a lot of work and emotion into trying to figure out certain things. So I appreciate that.
I think it definitely shows, though.
Well, thank you.
What do you think that you have improved the most on over the years?
Yeah, so I think one thing, or I guess two things. The first is lighting. I think I've improved a ton on, and just playing around with that. Lighting used to scare me so much. Like I use flashes in the majority of my shoots now, and I remember the first time I got them, I was probably 16, and I just was like, what the heck do I do with these? I don't know what to do. So I think playing with lighting, and that's become like my favorite thing to do. And then I think like adding emotional depth to my photography has been a big thing as well, specifically with my doll photos. You look at the first ones that I took, of course, when I'm 13 or 14, I did always try to have dolls interacting with each other, or like the photos, I always wanted them to tell a sort of story, but it was kind of hard often to translate what I really wanted to come across as you were looking at these pictures. And I think that that's been a big thing for me recently. And then I think what I've improved upon most is being able to work in almost any kind of condition, like weather conditions, lighting conditions. I remember reading when I was pretty new to photography, never shoot at noon because the sun is high, right up in the sky, only shoot it 1 hour before sunset, and all of these things. And those were rules that definitely helped me learn how to shoot at, beautiful times like magic hour and blue hour and that sort of a thing. But now it's like when I'm out on a photo shoot, sometimes the sun will come out, even though it's supposed to be a cloudy day, and it's just, terrible lighting. And it's like, okay, I'm here. I drove like an hour to get here. How do I make this work? And I think my stress level has gone down a lot since I started doing photography way back when, because I can generally just make it work. And you bring extra equipment like diffusers or reflectors, and you just work with what you got.
I just get so stressed when I try to take photos. I'm like the complete opposite.
Yeah, I can understand that. I get really stressed whenever I think about doing stop motion. Like, I can't imagine like a doll toppling over at some point. I mean, oh my gosh. And then it's like, do you have to reshoot the entire thing because the continuity is off like that?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I cheat a little and I just try to put it back in place.
Kind of where it was,
Yeah, and then I'll take a couple photos and be like, okay, no, it needs to be moved a little, so I'll move it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it's so tedious. I'm not into medium.
So can you walk us through the steps of a normal photo shoot? Like roughly how long from when you first think of an idea to when you click post on Instagram does it take for the whole process and like each part of the process?
It really, really depends on the idea. So sometimes I will think of an idea one morning and I'll think, wow, this is really timely. I should post this tonight. And so I will just, set aside a couple of hours and I'll grab, I'll bulldoze my room and my storage area and get my dolls out, get the photos, take them, edit them right away and post them. But usually it's a several day process. I'll have an idea in my head. I mean, my mom also makes a lot of costumes and stuff for photo shoots. So I'll ask her, hey, is this something that you want to work on? And if she says yes, great. And then it's like, depends on what kind of timeline we're working with. But it can take like a week for her to, have the time to make an outfit, make the props, meanwhile, I'm shot listing generally scenes from a movie that I'm wanting to recreate with this outfit. And I'm doing a ton of shot listing. I'm gathering all the props or making whatever I need to do. Then the shoot day comes, and it's generally, like an hour or two of setup, depending on the scene, or we're driving out to a location and a couple hours shooting, come back home, you have to put everything away, which is always the worst because generally I've just completely demolished my storage area by then. And then, depending on the photo, an hour or two of editing and then posting it. So it really, really depends. But for most of my photos that are recreations, which is primarily what I do now, it's a lot of thought and effort into each picture.
Oh, I can imagine. I mean, just the little details that you have are insane. And
yeah, they're really fun to pop in there it depends on what it is, but I love trying to get as close to the original as possible.
So what photo do you think took the longest?
Oh boy, I don't know. There's so many, like it really depends on if I'm working with my mom or not, because sometimes she'll be working on outfits for just weeks at a time. Like we last October, I think, or November, we did this scene from Harry Potter and the Prison of Azkaban, where she and I worked for months. Like that whole summer, we were like, we got to do Hagrid's hut and we got to do Buckbeak and Harry and Hermione rescuing Buckbeak. So we made Hagrid's hut, which is a giant undertaking. And then we found this giant stuffed plush eagle on eBay, which we bought. And she amazingly found a horse from a thrift store, and she morphed the two together by like cutting half of the eagle off and cutting the front part of the horse off and sewing them together.
Oh my gosh.
And she painted the horse and the eagle so they looked just like Buckbeak. She made the wings, that's a huge undertaking. So we did that, and then she made all of the outfits for Harry, Ron, and Hermione. We went to pumpkin patches and bought like all of the little pumpkins that we would need, and then we set up the whole scene in the course of a couple hours, shot for probably 2 hours as well, tore it down, and then I spent several hours editing the pictures. So that's one of those things where you've just had it in your brain forever. You want to do it, and you're slowly bringing all the pieces together, and finally we have everything, and now we got to pick a right day to shoot it and set it up and everything. So that was a several month undertaking.
That sounds like it. Is that like typical, or how like far in advance then do you plan your photos?
I generally have a list of pictures that I want to do. And so I usually look at my list and think about like the seasons that we're going through. And it's like, okay, this is a holiday picture. So I really need to start thinking of this now because we're a couple months away from Christmas or, something like that. But from start to finish, like right now, I really want to take some time off in December because I haven't done that in a long time. So I have about 30 photo ideas that I have made a list for, and I'm actually spending today kind of shot listing all of them. So I'm, figuring out exactly what images I want to take. I sometimes draw them out and do like storyboards. And then I'm going to probably spend this next week just getting as many of those photos done, so that I will have some time off in December. So it really depends. But I always have a list of pictures that I want to take so that I'm never really stumped.
That's crazy that you just have all that planning that goes into every single photo, though.
Yeah.
And you storyboards and
I do, but I know, you do stop motions. You understand storyboarding, script writing, and everything. I mean, it's a lot. It is a lot.
Just like the amount of effort, though, that goes into every single photo. It blows my mind.
Oh, well, thank you. It is fun, and it's sometimes overwhelming, but yeah, it's really fun. Like I posted a picture of ET fairly recently, and that was interesting because usually I'm very practical with my effects. Like, I usually take a picture of a sky and take a picture of trees that I want to incorporate into my photos. And so if I'm doing a composite, I'm still like, it's all of my images. And for that one, it's like, I do not have time to do anything. So I just, did some searches for like photos that I could potentially use, and I on Google, and then I just did a whole composite image, and I took a picture of ET in front of like my soft box, ET and Elliot on their bike, and I just threw that one together fairly quickly. But that's not the norm. That's one of the easier photos that I've done. Yeah.
I really feel like, though, that all your hard work actually does reflect in the photos. And I'm not just saying that. I'm being 100% genuine. When I don't know what I was expecting. Of course you put a lot of effort into your photos. I mean, I look at them and I don't know. There's just so much effort that I can assume was put into it that I don't know what I was expecting, of course.
Oh, that's sweet. Yeah, I feel the same way when I think about like films that you're watching and you see kind of like the set design, and like if you're in someone's bedroom and all of the little details that are in that person's bedroom that really showcase their personality that aren't featured at all, and you think of the set designer and the props designer just putting all of those things in there, knowing that nobody will really ever see them, but knowing that they add so much to the character's depth. It's crazy to me what some people do detail wise. So thank you for telling me that, because it really, really makes me feel happy.
I know that you mentioned earlier that your mom helps sew and your family helps a lot with like inspiration and stuff. You seem to have a character though or a doll for every single character out there. Are all of these dolls an individual doll that you just have made for that one thing and you keep it made? Or do you just kind of have a bunch of hairless dolls that you just swap the wigs on when you need them?
Yeah, it's mostly that. I have a lot of dolls. I have probably, I mean, I haven't counted in so long. I probably have around 50 dolls, maybe more, but a vast majority of them are wigless. And I've worked with a lot of wig companies over the years, like taking pictures of them for their company. And so I have an abundance of wigs. And so whenever I'm looking to replicate a specific character, I just kind of go through my wig stash and find the right face mold that works with the character. And I put them together, and then I put just a tiny bit of glue on the doll's head just to make the wig stay long enough so that it's not like, falling out when I'm traveling to a location. And then I take off the wig and undress the doll, and yep, she's ready for the next shoot. I actually, all of my dolls are stored without clothes and many without wigs. Because it's very easy. It's so much easier to just grab one and go whatever. Yeah. So that's the truth of it.
Do you have dolls that still have the wigs like they're...
Oh yeah. Yes. I think I said the vast majority of my dolls are wigless, but that's not actually true, because I'm thinking of all of my, like I collected Girl of the Year dolls, and I collected the historical characters, and I don't do anything with them unless I have a duplicate. I'm not gonna de-wig them.
Yeah.
So all of them are in their natural form, and I use them when I can. If they look like a character, I'll just use that doll, or I'll recreate scenes from like the historical books and the original illustrations, and I'll just use that character.
So who was your first doll then?
Kirsten was my first doll. I got her when I was 6 from my grandma for Christmas, and I was very into pioneers, and I had very blonde hair and bangs, and I always wore in braids, so I was ecstatic when I opened Kirsten.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of people ask me to like ask you, what type of camera equipment and editing software do you use?
Yes. Okay. So I use my Canon 5D Mark III. That's the camera I use mostly. I also have a very old 1DS Mark II, which is, I don't even know what year that's from. It's a 2000s camera that is wonderful. It's like a beast, but don't use it that much anymore. And then for my photos, I use a Canon 85mm for a lot of them, a lot of my pictures. And then a lens that I've been using a lot recently is a 24mm that I've been doing for a lot of my film recreation ones, because it works so well when I'm trying to duplicate certain scenes. So for that's what I use, camera lens primarily. And then let me think. When I'm out on a photo shoot, I always have a reflector with me. Reflectors are fantastic for bouncing light back into the faces of your dolls. So that's really, really important. And editing software, I use Adobe Lightroom and Photoshop on my laptop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was probably the most requested question that I got, because I let people know that I was going to be interviewing you, and everybody was like, I need to know what camera equipment and editing software she uses so I can use the same stuff.
Oh, well, all power to you guys. That's my secret, apparently.
Yeah. But that was definitely my most requested question.
Oh, I love that so much. Another thing I also always bring with me on photo shoots are metal skewers, and I use them to prop up my dolls. So I always use them because otherwise dolls will fall over in the wind or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it is still a balancing act, but generally I use them as a sort of third leg for my dolls, so it's like a tripod.
Yeah, I've seen those on your mom's Instagram.
Yeah, exactly.
So you just like Photoshop the skewer out.
I Photoshop them out, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, that would be kind of weird if you just had like a random pole sticking out of your dolls. People would be like, what?
Periodically, I will forget to Photoshop out a skewer, and then I'm always kicking myself. I don't think I've ever like left one in and had people comment and ask what it is, because generally I don't even notice it when I'm editing, but every once in a while one will slip by and it really irks me. It really bothers me.
I saw over the summer you posted a couple of photos of a young girl holding an AG doll that you took when you were like 19.
Oh, yeah.
So do you ever take photos of anything else besides dolls?
I do. I take pictures of a lot of families. Like I do family photography. I'll do kids. Like for a long time I was doing primarily kid photography, and I offered an American Girl photo shoot where I had girls dress up in a bunch of like the old Pleasant Company dresses, because my mom got those for me off eBay when I was really young. And so I have a big old slew of those dresses, and I let girls wear them and, you know, have my dolls for a photo shoot if they didn't have one that looked like them, and then I would photograph them just for fun, and kids really seem to like that. But I also do events. One of my favorite things I did was I photographed PodCon here in Seattle. I've done, you know, different living history museum events too, which is always really fun. So I do a lot of different kinds of photography. It's not limited just to dolls.
Yeah, I was wondering that.
Yeah, well, I never thought I was going to be a photographer. Even when I started taking pictures of dolls, I was like 12. I had no idea what I wanted to be. At that time, I was thinking of being an astronaut, which is so out of my league, but I thought space was cool. So I always thought, I have a lot of stage fright, I suppose, a lot of performance anxiety. So the idea of working with people and like posing them and telling them what to do really scared me a lot growing up and doing my photography. But there came to a point where I was just wanting to try out ideas, and you know, I was using my family and my brother and, you know, our boyfriend and girlfriend so much in my pictures that it was just like, I can do this. So I started doing family pictures, and then that was fun, and I kind of branched out, and I think I really like doing event photography because it's more like photojournalism, which I'm very interested in. So that's fun. But I like to do pretty much any kind.
Are taking photos of dolls or people easier then?
Dolls are less stressful because it doesn't matter how much time it takes.
Yeah.
So when I'm working with people, generally it's easier in the sense that I know exactly what I want to do. I'm working with people and I can communicate it, and, you know, we'll get it done. But I still have like that anxiety in my chest of like, oh, what if they don't like the pictures? Or, you know, what if this doesn't, you know, what if I need to reshoot at some point because something went wrong, which thankfully hasn't happened, but you know, it's always in the back of my head. So I have a lot of stress still when I'm working with people. Whereas with dolls, it's like, you know, if I need to, I can reshoot anytime, and it doesn't matter if my dolls like my pictures or not. So it depends on the shoot, but generally I like shooting with dolls more than with people.
Yeah, I mean, I was also thinking about like the fact that, I mean, a person, you could be like, oh, you know, could you move a little this way?
Right.
Whereas a doll, if you tell them they're not going to move, that would be creepy if they did.
I think the hardest thing for me, or it used to be the hardest, was when I'm working with several different dolls when I'm setting up a scene and I want them all to look at the camera. And it's just like this act of getting my camera set up, looking through the viewfinder and going, oh no, there's like 4 dolls that aren't looking at me. I have
Yeah.
to pop up, turn their heads a little bit, go back to my camera. Oh, there's still one. Going back up, turning it a little bit. And then oftentimes like one doll will fall over during
Yep.
that time. Yeah. So if dolls could take direction, that would be very useful, but then it would also be a little terrifying because I have so many of them that could move.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I mean, there's so many times where I want my dolls to look at the camera and I'll turn their heads and I'll be like, they're definitely looking at the camera. And then I'll go look and I'm like, they're not
Nope.
even close.
Nope. Yeah, I know.
Obviously, though, we've established that you have a massive talent for photography.
Oh, thank you.
So,
Uh,
what are your plans for the future?
the future. I want to keep doing doll photography as long as I can because it is really fun and people seem to enjoy it, and it's like a really big creative outlet for me. And I've learned so much. I mean, I've learned all of my editing techniques pretty much from doing recreations of film scenes because I'm trying to match color or I'm trying to match lighting. And that's just been really fun. So if I have a new idea that I want to try out, it's just so easy to set them up with my dolls. But down the road, like I want to continue with photography certainly, and I don't mind like doing family pictures for however long I need to, or event photos. But something I really want to try out is to work on a film set as like a still photographer, which is the person taking like behind the scenes photos during the film.
Mm-hmm.
I've always wanted to do that, and I think it would be really fun. So that's kind of my goal in the next couple of years, to just kind of work on a couple local indie films, just working for free, what have you, so that I can kind of get that experience under my belt, because I think it would just be really fun, and I love the idea of it. It's kind of my goal in that way. And otherwise I'm just happy taking pictures wherever, seeing where the opportunities come from, because it's been weird. I never thought I'd take doll pictures for a living. So you never know what kind of opportunities will come out of that.
Would you ever consider working for American Girl, taking their photos for their catalog and their website?
Yeah, like it's definitely something I'd be interested in. And I don't know how or when that could happen, but if they asked me or if I saw the opportunity, I'd definitely like apply and just kind of feel that out and see if it'd work.
You definitely should if you ever get
Very
the
fun.
opportunity.
Right. I mean, that's everyone's dream. I can't imagine telling my like 7-year-old self you're going to work with American Girl someday. That would have just made her probably cry and jump up and down screaming and go on the trampoline and climb a tree. I'd be very happy.
Well, I think that's all the questions that I have for you.
Wow.
So
Thank you so much. That was really, really fun.
I want to thank you again so much for joining me and taking the time out of your day. Because
Yeah, of course. This was fabulous. It was so much fun. And anytime. I love your podcast.
thanks. I'm sure that you were really busy though today.
Well, it's all right. I have a couple things planned, but for the most part, we did it early enough in the day that we're totally good.
Mm-hmm. So, if you want to like tell the viewers or the listeners or whatever to check out anything like your YouTube channel or anything like that, you can do that right now.
Yeah, it's I'm just 5 hens and a cockatiel across the board. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and I'm on YouTube. And if you can spell it, that's great, because it's a long one. But 5 hens and a cockatiel.
Okay. Thank you once again though for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
And thank you to everybody for listening to this episode. I hope that you guys enjoyed it, and be sure to check back in another 2 weeks for another episode with another AGTuber or AGIGer. And we will see you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.